the break, we'll take a look at.
Pardon the interruption for a very important news update.
This is no holds barred. We go hard, we go harder. In the ring, on the mic, every shot is no holds barred. Feel the charge, feel the armor. Bobby Josh in your brain, turn it up, go farther, farther, farther. Theme hits loud, then the grips come off. Call out the card, call every payoff. Botches, legends, titles, and heat. Pay-per-view nights, run it back, repeat. They slam, we analyze. Move for move, every feud, every bruise, every demon move. This is no holds barred. We go hard, we go harder. In the ring, on the mic, every shot is no holds barred. Feel the charge, feel the armor. Bobby Josh in your brain, turn it up, go farther. Turn it up, go farther. Turn it up, go farther. No script, just true. Every jab breaks through. From the bell to the brawl. Name the show. We want it all. 1, 2, 3. This is no holds barred. We go hard, we go harder. In the ring, on the mic, every shot is no holds barred. Feel the charge, feel the armor. Bobby Josh in your brain, turn it up, go farther. Turn it up, go farther. Turn it up, go farther.
All right, what is up, everybody? For all those tuning in live or just dropping in, and all those who watch after, we appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us on this special Tuesday edition, 1 p.m. Eastern time of No Holds Barred Wrestling Podcast, our wrap-up series for the Dark Side of the Ring Battle for TNA episodes 2 and 3. We got lots to talk about. I mean, so much so that Josh and I talked about it prior to the show, which is a big sin I get with Josh. Josh is like, we don't talk about anything until showtime. Don't do it. But it had to. I texted him. I'm like, so we're going to talk about it here because I'm not going to say what we talked about, but he was cool. He was like, he was with me 100%. We texted about it. So I'm really excited about what we're going to discuss. DSG in the house. He says, happy birthday. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Maria, good to see you. Glad everybody tuning in whenever you are, wherever you are. Before we get started, though, on this episode, Josh, my man, how are you, brother?
I love how you interpret it as Josh doesn't want to talk about stuff until the show instead of Josh doesn't want to talk to me. Like, I'm glad you interpreted it that way. Because even my mother says, son, it's been 3 days. You haven't texted me back yet. It's okay, cool. I'm glad you see it that way. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good on this wonderful.
Now I doubt. Now I know what it is. Okay.
It's just what it is, man. Like, just know yourself, right? Anyway, be self-aware. And this was a very self-aware show. No, it was not self-aware, by the way. This show, I'm glad that we're talking about this. I'm so glad that because I squeezed it all in. I've watched it all. I wanted to do it last week, but you're like, brother, I had this. I'm like, okay, cool. We can only do episode 1. Really upsetting that we have to waste another week on this because it was not, to me, good. So I was hoping that we could have gotten this out of the way to save SummerSlam previews and WrestleMania recaps and the normal stuff we want to talk about because this wasn't good. And I'm going to say this. I tell this to my son. I tell this to the people I work with, my peers. I tell this to my wife. I tell this to anyone that's listening. If you're going to do something, and the content creators as well, if you're going to do something, do it right the first time. Do it to completion. Don't just say you're going to do something and then use ChatGPT, half-ass it, and tell half a story. I'm not saying they use AI. Whatever, you guys get my point. Do the right thing. This was not it. But to be fair, 3 episodes, 45 minutes apiece, it's not enough time to tell the story. No one's going to be happy.
Well, I think to carry your point when you talk about half-assed and whatever, like I told you this, I'll just say, what I had texted you as I watched episode 2, because let me just say preferences. I was excited. You were too. We were excited. I was excited to watch this because I watched TNA back in the day. I would tune in to watch that. It was different. It was in Orlando. So it was a little personal because we would go. So it was kind of cool. It's like, oh, and we'd see some of the guys we loved, or the guys Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Booker T, Scott Steiner, and then you see Samoa Joe and Styles and even Jarrett, so it's like, I was excited to watch this and learn about how it started, learn about how it grew and how it got better. And yeah, the battle for TNA. Okay, Dixie wanted power, Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett found it. Dixie Carter saved it with money, her family, and yeah, okay, I can learn about that power struggle, but I want to hear about that. I want to hear how when the Hogan and Bischoff got involved, and then how TNA kind of went downhill, and how it kind of reemerged. Like, that's what I expected when I saw Battle for TNA. The beginning, the fight, the downfall, and now where it is right now. That's what I expected. It wasn't really, if they were just honest about what the show was about, then I probably would not be so damn angry about it. Dumbfounded with the show, because at Dark Side of the Ring, I'm going to give it credit. It's a great program. I'm going to watch the Samoa Joe portion of it. They have a Samoa Joe. I forgot who he's fighting, but it's about a match. One of the Blades. I love their shows. But this was a huge stinker. I told you this. This is not the battle for TNA or story of TNA. It's a sob story of Jeff Jarrett. I'm not talking about Owen Hart or his wife. That's tragic and sad. And and he seems like a genuine nice guy. But this was totally about stroking the ego of Jarrett. How some of the things they were saying. And when you're talking TNA, the battle for TNA, the start of TNA. I put it here on here. TNA stars we didn't hear from that we should have heard from: Sting, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Kevin Nash, Booker T, Kurt Angle, Abyss. I understand maybe not getting all of them out. AJ Styles, Abyss, Kurt Angle, Booker T, all associated with the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Samoa Joe is AEW. We heard from Tony Khan for some stupid reason. Why am I hearing from Tony Khan about TNA? Christopher Daniels, Sting, all involved in AEW. They could have been involved in this. They could have said something about the battle for TNA or Jeff Jarrett's involvement. Like, I would have loved to have heard about how Jeff Jarrett got Sting to join TNA long term. I would have loved to hear Sting's perspective going, yeah, we heard the story about why he didn't go to WWF or WWE when The Rock told Booker T, "Who are you?" And that was like, oh, you see, they're just gonna shit on WCW guys. I know that part, but what made Sting go, you know what? I'm not only gonna just appear like every other old guy that appeared on TNA in the beginning. I'm gonna stay here long term. I'm gonna make this my home. I want to hear how Jeff Jarrett found Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, how he got them to come, and how they were a part of, like, how, he talked about the X division, but you didn't hear from those guys. You didn't hear from Christopher Daniels. They said a lot of stuff about the old guys that came in. They gave a lot of images of Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash could have been a part of this and talk about how he came and he stayed and how the influence of power and everything else. It's just a lot of lacking stuff. This wasn't the battle for TNA. This was how to make Jeff Jarrett feel better about himself, about why he lost TNA and everything else. There's so much shit that we got to get through here. Because this is what I wrote you. Wow. I can't wait for this to be over. That's, now you wrote me back. Now I know why you didn't like it. Now you know why I didn't like it. And I said, I can't wait for this to be over, because that's how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have known this is what episodes 2 and 3 or what this whole series was, yes, I probably would have just turned it on, went in the background while I was doing whatever, and would have been over it. Because this was not the battle for TNA. This was Jeff Jarrett's story, and TNA happened to be involved in it. They could have said the battle for Jeff Jarrett, the battle of Jeff Jarrett's personal demons, throwing tortilla chips in Mexico or something and drunk, and the love triangle or whatever the hell. Anyway, I'm going on a rant. There's a lot more to come with that. But let's start off with episode 2, Josh. Episode 1 left off with, I didn't even see the comments yet, so forgive me. If there's comments, I'm missing out on them. Let's go ahead and let me go ahead and get through these comments very quick. see, be nice to the birthday boy, Josh. He don't have to. Happy Tuesday. A lot of key figures were missing. Yes, sir. Fernando in the house. Jeff, Jarrett, and Karen.
Listen,
go ahead.
I want to say something about the missing pieces. They did ask people, probably. I mean, you're not going to not ask. You're not going to not ask. So a lot of people said no. They didn't want to be a part of it. Why do they not want to be a part of it? We don't know. Maybe they heard, oh, it's just a puff piece on Jeff Jarrett. They didn't want to be involved. Maybe they couldn't because of the WWE ties. Maybe because they're busy. They didn't want to revisit their days of TNA. They're, whatever the case may be. I think we heard from some right people, Jim Cornette's, Russo's. We heard some decent amount of good people. We also, like you said, we heard from people I didn't really care for. The best person, the most real person, the most authentic person who had nothing to lose. She didn't care who she rubbed wrong or who she rubbed right.
Karma.
You heard Matt Hardy.
Yes,
you heard Matt Hardy, though. Matt Hardy, by the way, Matt Hardy, big, like, cool. I like what you did, but you're always kissing when you went to AEW, always kissing WWE's ass. Oh, no problems with them. Love what they're doing over there. Now you're gone. Oh, love what Tony's doing. He's always a kiss ass, and he kissed Dixie's ass again. Oh, I'm so grateful for Dixie. Without Dixie, there'd be no TNA, this and that. Dude, he kisses ass everywhere he can go because he will go anywhere he can go. So I wish we didn't hear from those kind of people, like the kiss asses. Jeff was important. We needed to hear Jeff Hardy. But you're right, man. Where was Rude? He's associated with WWE. Where was James Storm? Like, where were the OGs?
Yes.
Those are the people I wanted to hear from. But again, they either declined the invitation or they didn't get invited. But all of our complaints are valid. All of them. All of our complaints are totally valid. So
yeah, and just shout out to everybody who's watching and commenting, whether you like it or not. Seabrill tackle, probably Jarrett carrying themselves, not really happy. One-sided, yeah, they invited the Evil Witch, but she didn't accept the invite. Are you serious or just stupid? They invited Dixie. I'm not just mentioning Dixie. I didn't mention Dixie not one time about being invited on the show. I know she was invited. I know she was asked to come on the show. I never mentioned Dixie Carter. I mentioned Sting, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Kevin Nash, Booker T, Kurt Angle. I asked them, and maybe they did. Maybe they were asked, but maybe they declined. Why did they decline? Maybe because this was too much about stroking Jeff Jarrett and making him look good and not talking about what really happened with TNA. Maybe that's the case because let's be real here. Company, we talked about this on episode 1. The company starts, and again, WCW goes down. WCW goes down the drain. They sell. McMahon fires Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett thinks, he's not going to go to WWF. There's no other company to go to. So what does he do? He thinks of TNA. He goes to his dad, Jerry Jarrett. Let's start a company that, it's not going to compete, but it's going to be an alternative to the WWE. It gives people a home, and it gives me a job. His dad says, let's do this. He gets his dad was a classic wrestling promoter, whatever, brings him in. Smart. $9.99 a week or whatever the hell it was. Awesome. They have their first weekly pay-per-view. Like, that's the other thing. NWA Total Nonstop Action. How did NWA get involved? What was the plan? They got the NWA title, the classic belt, Harley Race, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, NWA TNA. Where was that? How did Jeff Jarrett get that involved? Was it Jerry J? We never heard that. What we did hear a week after the weekly pay-per-view, they start in June 19th, 2002. They bring in Vince Russo in July. Why? You just started into creative. Your dad was starting creative. Now you created an issue between your dad and Vince Russo and Jim Cornette. Like, I don't understand. Like, here's the first knife in the side that you did to yourself. But we're going to skip that. We're not going to talk about, that's what I would have loved to hear him say, listen, the reason why I brought in Vince Russo, he believed in me in WCW. I actually like his stories. I wanted to be different. I wanted to continue that. I don't know. I would have loved to hear that. Except all he said was, I brought in Vince Russo, bro. My dad wasn't happy, bro. And That's what we heard. So you create an issue right there. And you create an issue with Jim Cornette and Russo, which you knew was already there. Now, not even some months later, or however short later, you lose the funding. The investments are gone, which sucks. I mean, he took a risk, which, again, there's not to take away from this is Jeff Jarrett did find TNA. He made this. He started this. No matter what happened after, he's the one who was the brain who said, I'm going to create this brand and I'm going to do this. So he goes and gets the money, gets the investments. Not his fault that the investments got pulled. But so what happens? The investments get pulled. So what does he do? He talks to the vendors, tells them, hey, I lost my money, but if you want to go, I understand. But if you want to stay, I'll figure this out. Dixie Carter goes, go talk to my parents. She's one of the vendors, marketing or something. So he goes to Panda Energy in Texas, and they agree. They take it. Now, 2004, they fully separate from the NWA. We never knew how they got involved with the NWA, but now they fully separated from the NWA. And
Ridiculous.
Early on,
well,
go ahead.
Well, that's the whole thing about this whole documentary is they just mention names in passing. They mention Panda. They just mention things in passing. Oh, but okay, how did that start? Now we're talking about the ending of it. This whole thing was put together with band-aids and stitches. I don't care what anyone has to say about the topic, if you're a professional or whatever the case may be. This whole thing was so bounced around and, to me, poorly timelined. As in, you're right, Bobby. We've missed, but again, Bobby, I think you're going into this as a perspective of, I want to learn about TNA because that's what the title tells you.
Yeah.
You said it perfectly about 10 minutes ago. If this was named The Battle of Jeff Jarrett and His Demons with TNA or whatever the case may be, we would have gone in and going, oh, this is the Jeff Jarrett story.
Which is
the
fine.
Fact is, the matter is, it was branded as the TNA story, the Battle of TNA, which we didn't get. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, if you need to do something like this or we want something like this done, it needs to be much longer. It needs to be a bigger series. It can't just be 3 45-minute episodes with commercials and ads. It's not going to work, Bobby. There's too much details missing out. There's too much details on how we got from Jeff Jarrett getting sent home with Kurt Angle and that whole situation to where he comes back and it's an angle. It's a whole storyline. There are so many more details. I will tell you this, Bobby. I'm a man. I've been separated. I've been divorced. I've been in decisions where I've transitioned from one lover to another. We all have. I think we're humans. You can't tell me, and I'm not just digging in on Karen and Jarrett right now. This isn't about their relationship specifically. You can't tell me there was more than just, oh yeah, I hated my husband. I got divorced. I somehow just worked at TNA and I just fell in love with Jeff Jarrett. Bull spit. You are not the victims in the story, as someone said in the chat earlier. There's more than what, and I wish there was more to it, a more honest approach to the relationship. Not that it's our business. It's definitely not our business. But if you're going to tell the story, I would like to know the real story because none of that added up. And that's what I'm more pissed off about anything because
that's the thing.
It was such a great story.
Add up.
But nothing adds up. Where's the real story? Where are the people going, no, that didn't happen at all. This is the real. There was no detractors. There was no one saying negative things about Jeff or things that Jeff, it was more of a, oh, he's such a good guy and he's an alcoholic, so we wanted to help, whatever. It was never of, Jeff needs to take accountability. None of that. And that's the things that we're missing from this whole thing. There was no accountability.
Look, it's, there's a lot. We're hitting this thing in early, but I'll just say, first off, when the show starts, episode 2 starts with the signing of Kurt Angle, basically. Bringing in Kurt Angle, which, again, that really you made TNA legit. Kurt Angle, again, he's going through personal demons, gets himself released by the WWE. We all know that story, no research or not, apparently, from the guy in the comments.
Don't worry about the nobody's watching us, brother.
Yeah, I don't worry about any of that. I'm just saying. But anyway, Kurt Angle joins TNA. Karen Jarrett, who was separated from Kurt at the time, which she says, hey, no matter what people want to believe, we were separated, and take your word for it. Kurt was going through a lot of stuff, so you got to believe that might be the case, and it probably was. But Kurt Angle, he wants to make things right. They pay Kurt a lot of money to come into TNA, and Kurt tells Karen, hey, look, can you come join me? I want to look like a happy family. Karen joins him, and eventually Kurt convinces TNA, bring her on TV. So that's how Karen Angle got involved. But TNA, again, gives TNA credibility. And I 100% believe, I remember that. I thought, Kurt Angle, to me, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest in-ring competitor. And he also was total package, could talk, could walk, and do it all. And you just brought him in. He's your main dog. I mean, that was such a catch for TNA, for Jeff Jarrett, for Dixie Carter, for all of them, to bring in someone like Kurt Angle. Jeff Jarrett selling Mr. Carter, the dad, on Kurt Angle. So Kurt Angle comes in. This finally put that it was such a hit for WWE that's what basically drove McMahon to have a grudge against Kurt Angle. Kurt, he released Kurt Angle. He said, because Kurt Angle threatened to fight him and everything else. And McMahon said, you know what? He goes, Vince, I need to get away. Vince says, all right, take your time. I'm going to release you of your deal. When you're ready to come back, you have a home here. Great. What does he do? He doesn't do that. He jumps in, goes right to TNA. Now it makes TNA look legitimate. And it's revealed here that McMahon was watching TNA. He was taking a look. They were watching this. So that's when Vince got hurt. So that tells you the power that Kurt Angle had jumping ship and what brought TNA to this level.
It's like a sports franchise that's bad, or it needs that guidance. Think about an NBA team who, back when LeBron was making his decision the first time, every team was like, oh, is LeBron going to pick us? Because that one person can change the franchise. And Kurt Angle was that for TNA at the time, where they didn't have any kind of game changers. Yeah, they had people that were recognizable, but they didn't have Kurt Angle. I remember that night very well. I watched it live. When Kurt Angle came in there, faced off against Samoa Joe, I'm thinking, this is real, because you guys got to understand, me and Bobby are looking at this at a different angle. We were WCW people, and whenever they dissolved, we were always looking for an alternative. I think so. At least I can't speak for you, but for me, I was always like, oh, I'm stuck with WWF now, man. So when TNA finally started popping on the map, I'm like, I need to see this. And then when Christian went over there, Kurt Angle, it became hot. But Kurt was the game changer. Kurt was the one who was going to take TNA from a nobody promotion to, wow, they're getting video games, they're getting sponsorship, they're getting seen. So this is more massive than we can ever imagine right now. Because in today's day, we see AEW signs Andrade or Malachi Black, and they're labeled as game changers. Rusev was labeled as a game changer. None of them were ever on the level of a Kurt Angle, and that's what TNA got. It'd be like AEW getting Seth Rollins.
Yes, yeah. It makes you legitimate. It's like, oh gosh, this is real. This is like they mean something. Because how could someone like Kurt Angle join something like TNA, or like Hulk Hogan going to WCW? That was a big deal. That mattered back in the day. So I love that part. I was interested in that. Again, I would have loved to hear about Sting and Styles and Joe, but especially like those guys who came in and how they came in and why they came in and how long they stayed. But the episode continues. Dixie Carter getting more control. As after Kurt Angle becomes or joins TNA, Panda Energy increases their financial investment. Dixie is the president. She becomes like the public face of the company. Jeff Jarrett, during this time, he's talking about, they kind of bring up how Dixie wanted to be a little more involved. This was her baby. She wanted to kind of, she wants to show her dad and whatever, which, okay, maybe, but I can understand Jeff's part. Like this, again, it's hard to, Jeff now has a partner with a financial stake. So, and now he has to give a little more up. And so he says, okay, you handle the business. I'll help you, Alberta, but I'll take care of the wrestling. So when she starts to show up in the creative meetings, starts to create a little thing. And obviously, as Russo kind of plays both sides. I mean, he says this during the show, but pretends he's Jarrett's side. But you hear how he continues to play both sides, where even the Karen Angle Jarrett situation, when Vince comes to Jeff and brings up, hey, after Jeff got booted, we'll talk about that, but says, hey, I think it would be a good story, bring you back and have this storyline with you and Kurt Angle, and you take Karen from him. And he goes, you need to get approved. And he goes, I already did.
I think the quote was, "Bro, we need this. Bro, we need this story,
bro." So, and again, proves to be playing both sides here. But again, I understand Jeff's part when he talks about how, he kind of felt a little indifferent about her being too involved, and then he, again, I don't know if it was more like that back then or was it after, where now, perspective, but obviously looking over his shoulder saying, "Oh, she's trying to take this from me." I think it was more about him saying, "Hey, you're not wrestling. You're not from wrestling. It's not about being a woman." There's women, his grandmother or his aunt, I'm forgetting right now who, was one of the best promoters. So,
Teeny.
Yeah. So I don't think it's anything about being a woman. I think it was more about, hey, you're not a wrestler. You're not from this world. Know your role, handle the business or whatever. I can understand that kind of topic. But anyway, they talk about
your
how
role, woman.
Well, no, not woman. No, person who doesn't know wrestling. No,
you showed her North Korea highlights too. Like all
there we go. We're going back to that. Are we okay? So anyway, that was DSG text or message that the other day on Twitter. So he put a thing of Kim Jong Un. I'm like, you son of a. But so they discussed that. Now the situation with Jeff Jarrett and Karen Aaron, because this gets to the point where Jeff's kind of talking about how he feels maybe Dixie's doing a power play, or she keeps getting little involved, and talks, the whole boss thing. When guy goes, "Hey, boss, hey, Jeff Jarrett, boss,"
call him boss,
and she stops him, and don't you ever, don't call him boss. He's not the boss. And so there's these little things that are being brought up. Anyway, again, Jeff Jarrett, Karen Angle, that situation's pretty big in this episode. And it was pretty big during that time. Was it Bubba the Love Sponge, where somebody called in and said, "Oh, Jeff Jarrett's messing around with Kurt Angle's wife." I actually play that audio in there, but I remember that situation. And Karen Angle brings up how, again, they were separated at the time, and Jeff had lost his wife tragically. I mean, and again, being a husband and a father and hearing that story, it's sad. It's heartbreaking. To me, it was more sadder than the Owen Hart thing, which I understand is his best friend, and he didn't really have time to digest that situation. But losing his wife in that way, he seems like a very loving husband. Again, Jeff Jarrett does come off, again, minus the whole stroking of the person, whatever, the ego, he comes as a genuine, nice guy, kind-hearted dude, and all that whatnot. Very loving to his kids, and co-parenting Kurt Angle's kids. But with this situation, it's brought, they bring up, hey, his wife had passed. It's been a while. He wanted to move on. He got to talking with Karen Angle at that moment in time. They hit it off, him and Kurt. And he said that, he saw Kurt with other women at the time. So he's like, hey, maybe I could, I'm going to start talking with her and move with this. And so that relationship develops, which again seems innocent. I mean, it makes sense, right? There's no love. There's no affair. There's nothing going on. She's separated. They're separated. Jeff Jarrett is a widower. Seems innocent. So, this relationship, they talk about, if you were actually paying attention behind the scenes, it's easy to see Karen and Jeff had something going on, obviously oblivious to Dixie Carter, supposedly. They throw a party.
Yes.
They throw a party. They invite everybody. Dixie's one of the last people to show up. Jeff and Karen open the door. Dixie, Tennessee charm, whatever, Southern charm. "Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so happy for you two. Oh, whatever." She leaves. She calls Vince Russo, both sides, calls Vince Russo. "Why did I not know about this? What is this?" Then she slams the papers. They show her slamming the papers. And that's what he says. And Jeff goes, "That's when she had her thing. That's when she had it. She made her power play."
Mm-hmm.
Threw the papers down on the table and said, "This is too much, or whatever. It's I forgot what this conflict of interest, et cetera, et cetera. Jeff Jarrett, you need to go home. We're going to relieve you. You're going home for a little while." This was a power play. Well, Jeff being, again, they didn't discuss this part. And Josh, you can take over from here in this portion here. But they didn't discuss this. But the more I thought about it, I was like, what was her reasoning? Because all that makes sense. Jeff says she knows what I went through. She knew about Karen and Kurt. Why would this be an issue? And then the more I thought about it, I'm sure TNA or Panda Energy, since they were the owners at that time. Most companies do. And I think Maria put it in the comments earlier. I don't have the comments up again, but where she puts, coworkers, employees, whatever. I'm sure Panda Energy has a policy that says supervisors, this, and employees, which Karen Angle was. She was an on-air talent. She had showed up on TV. If you have a relationship, I don't know if there was no relationship rule, or if there was a relationship, you have to disclose this information. If that's a policy and they didn't follow that policy, as much as maybe petty that might be from Dixie may have said, let's throw this under the rug, it's still a policy. I don't know. They never said that, but why would they? It would not look good on them because they make it look good. You should have said something about it. You didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, but it was obvious.
That's my whole thing is we don't know Panda Energy's policy or TNA Impact's or policies at the time. That could have been it. And there's those are in place for reasons in anyone's job. You can't, your boss can't date the rep or whatever the case may be. You can't do that, or you have to disclose it. That's common knowledge in the corporate world, I guess. If I was going to go ahead and date someone, probably just another rep, I don't think I'd have to disclose that. But if I was in leadership like Jeff was, but I want to say this about Jeff knew what he was doing. Karen knew what they were doing. Everybody knew what they were doing. So if that's the place, if that's the policy, it is what it is. But this is somewhat to deal with this, but not. What did you think about Karma or Awesome Kong and other people going, it was so vague who the boss was. We didn't even know Jeff started this company. We heard that from many people. So if Jeff felt like he didn't have to it felt like he was more of a common man, what I'm trying to say is he was with the people, he was with the wrestlers, he was with the production. No one knew that he was the founder because he didn't really disclose it a lot. So him and Karen, he just thought, oh, this is just a normal thing. Me and Karen are friends. We're dating now. Big deal. Then Dixie sees it as this power play as I need this guy out so I can run this company the way I want it to. I just feel like there's more to the story that we're missing. Again.
But that's the problem with this series. There's a lot of it that's missing. And I agree with you with Karma. She comes off great. I love her perspective of it. I think she's genuine in regards of what in regards of what she's discussing and how she's feeling. And they talk about when Dixie kind of tells the wrestlers in that private setting and then releases it on TV.
We're not even there yet. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but just her perspective on everything really helped. But you bring this point up. I had that in my notes about, as these situations happen and Jeff is having these personal issues and everything else, his authority, which really, again, it doesn't seem like most wrestlers saw that as such. They saw him as one of the boys, which he was. I mean, maybe that's how he did it. But again, they saw him as one of the boys. And of course, Dixie probably saw herself as the authority figure and, had to kind of set that tone, but also try to be involved with everybody. But as his authority got diminished, they continue to see the divide, right? Oh, she took my power. She did the power play. She took everything. But multiple people in this process that we're interviewing were talking about how their relationship was fractured, but so was the structure, the leadership structure. They didn't know who to go to. Basically, they didn't know who was the boss. Mm-hmm. And that was a big issue then. That was never established. But it felt like early on when Dixie came aboard, they talked about how Jarrett did not like the Carters. Jeff Jarrett talks about how my father, his dad said before his dad and him separated and didn't talk for years. He says how his dad said, we need to get out of this thing with the Carters. We need to get out of this. But they don't say why. They don't say why Jarrett said that. You just find out later, oh, maybe he knew that, Dixie was a snake, according to Jeff. Or according to Karen. Anyway, Jeff is booted from the TNA for a little while.
See ya.
And so he leaves. He's on hiatus. He's watching from home. And then Dixie Carter, actually, I guess, I don't know who if it was her or if it was someone else, but somebody called Jeff Jarrett and said, hey, we're flying down to Tampa, or Dixie's going down to Tampa. She would like you to come because she's going to talk to Hulk Hogan. That's where this comes into play. And this was one of those major moments for TNA. Again, like Kurt Angle, you're bringing a guy who obviously, you think of pro wrestling, you think of Hulk Hogan if you're a wrestling fan. So this was a big deal. Everybody talked about it when it happened, when Hogan joined TNA and Bischoff. And it was, well, hindsight's 27. We could say, yeah, it was a bad decision. And I think everybody would say that now. If you look back then, when it happened, I think everybody said, I'm going to tune into TNA. I want to, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair showed up, and it was that major thing that went down. Sting. It was kind of like, oh, this is WCW reborn and whatever. But anyway, she calls Jeff Jarrett. That's kind of Jeff Jarrett's. He thinks, oh, this is my foot back into the door. I'm back. Goes down to Tampa, meets up with Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan. Same type of situation, and which makes sense. Again, I think this was good, but again, I would have liked a little further detail into Russo and Hogan's relationship. How Eric Bischoff said he did not trust Russo on a personal level, on a professional level. Makes sense. So that's why Eric got involved, and Eric was supposed to only, and Russo says it, he was, bro, Eric Bischoff, bro, only came in here and it was told to me, bro, that he was only going to take care of Hulk Hogan's storylines, bro. And of course, Eric Bischoff says on the other side, Eric Bischoff goes, well, eventually I had to take over creative and whatever. So obviously, again, conflicting stories. It is what it is. Jarrett says at the time he believed that was the wrong direction for TNA, and it would fundamentally change what made the company unique. One of the big changes, of course, is the hexagon, the ring, right? Six-sided ring. So just let's talk about that. Let's talk about Jarrett getting involved with Hogan and what you heard from that. What were your thoughts on that process as it came about?
I just can't believe, one, that it happened. That Hogan, I still can't believe that it happened because I was actually watching TNA at that time. And two, the biggest thing of me is like, I didn't see it as a fan because at the time I'm like, oh, Hogan's coming in to bring him back to the gang. I was kind of upset, like, oh, we're doing this again, because I was still at that mindset even at that age. But when Jeff said Hogan had no clue who we were, what TNA meant, right there. This tells you what Dixie knows about the company or about wrestling in general. Nothing. Bobby, if you were going to go hire someone for FTSN and they never watched the Dolphins game in their life, but they know football, they watched, the Iowa Huskies play college or whoever, but they didn't really watch NFL football or know how the Miami Dolphins run or whatever, but you're going to hire them to be your lead talker on the FTSN. That's a ridiculous move. Hulk Hogan was just there for the money, just as DSG said in the chat. Terrible move for TNA. But what Jeff said was, if Hogan was going to be the face or does what he does best,
there it is.
Great move.
Yes.
But if Hogan does what he does, which is take over and the ego, and that's obviously what happened. So I think Jeff saw the writing on the wall. And if Dixie wasn't there, I know this wasn't your question, but if Dixie wasn't there, eliminate her from the process. And it was still Jeff running the show, and you had Cornette and you had Russo. Do you think that would have worked with no Dixie? And then we had people to have Hogan in line. Do you think that would have worked, or would have went off the rails because of Russo anyway?
No, I don't think Russo, because I don't know if Hogan would have went to TNA, because I don't think, first off, they wouldn't have the money. But also, would they have agreed to bring in Bischoff, because Russo has an issue with Bischoff, and Jarrett has shown that he'll bring guys in if you have issues no matter what. I mean, he did that with Russo and Cornette, did that with Russo and Jarrett.
They just even each other out, he said.
But he did. There was a tease about Hogan going to TNA a little before this. I don't know if Dixie Carter was involved, but I don't know if you remember, it was in Japan. Hogan was in Japan. He was doing kind of some sort of promo, in New Japan. This was in between WWE or whatever. And Jeff Jarrett showed up and smashed his head with a guitar. I got to go back now that I think about it, but there was a tease about Hogan and Jeff Jarrett, Hogan and TNA at that moment, but it didn't come about. Again, they didn't talk about that, and saying how, he realized at that moment, Hogan didn't know about TNA. He didn't know what made them unique when he was listening to Hogan talk. And again, first off, Jeff Jarrett was suspended or whatever. TNA wasn't the same. Dixie Carter, like, we could go back and look, right? You say like, oh, that could tell you Dixie didn't know what she was doing. At the same time, what Dixie was trying to do is what she's been doing the whole time, trying to make a name for herself. So what does she do? Oh, Hulk Hogan's the biggest name in pro wrestling. Let's bring in Hulk Hogan, and that's what she did. She was playing a gamble. She was trying to show like, hey, I could take this thing to a whole other level.
Bad
gamble. But that's what gambling is, right? You gamble and you say, let's see, and that's what she did.
Yeah.
Hogan was going through a lot. And maybe, Hogan needed the money, and Dixie was going to give him a lot of money. His heart wasn't in it. But again, I understand Dixie's part of it in regards of, and Jeff Jarrett. And again, Jeff Jarrett could have said, I wish, did he say that? Obviously, maybe he didn't. But he could have said, hey, Dixie, are we sure we want to do this?
Right.
Like, Jeff, again, Jeff could have, Jeff didn't say that in the show. And if he would have said, I just wish I would have said something at the time. But again, TNA was doing really good on money. They were doing really big. Dixie wanted to bring them to a higher thing, which again makes sense. But that also cost you some morale in the locker room. Because again, there was Karma brings up how there are wrestlers working double, triple jobs there. And Carmen was a big deal back then. She was. There was a lot of the women back then that were big deals, TNA knockouts. But they see them throwing this money around. They're bringing all these older guys in. And Jeff Jarrett would do that too, but he had to bring people in to get eyes on the channel, get eyes on the people. Your question, Bobby, would you bring someone in who didn't watch FTSN, who didn't know the brand or whatever? If it's a personality as big as Hulk Hogan in that thing, that's a different conversation because you're drawing people in. That's going to bring eyes to the thing. But what's your
okay?
Go ahead.
For example, because obviously you would bring in Rich Eisen if Rich Eisen said, "Oh yeah, of course, right." But look at scale, right? TNA was still number 2 company in wrestling.
Awesome Kong, yes, thank you.
Yeah, Awesome Kong. Yeah, I've been calling her Kong. She's awesome. I miss her. I wish she never got pregnant. Oh yeah, I'm glad that she. Let me say this. I wish she had a better run in WWE.
What the fuck?
She got pregnant right away, dude. It's like she never came back. I felt bad. But okay. Naomi too. I miss you too. And Jay and Bianca. Gosh, so many people having babies and messing up my wrestling. What was I saying? I don't know what I was saying. I really don't know.
Rich Eisen. You bring up Rich Eisen.
Oh yeah, Rich Eisen. Yeah. But yeah. So you're talking. Let's just say in your scale, in our scale, FTSN, you have someone with maybe 10,000 subs, and they don't cover football. They cover soccer, but they're really good at their job. They can host a show, but they just host soccer, so they know somewhat of sports. And you say, you're really good at hosting, but you do a soccer show. You could tell me about Barcelona and Argentina and Messi. But you really come over to FTSN, boom, let's do a Dolphin show. How do you think that would land, Bobby? So you bring in Hogan and all of his ideas, but he knows no one on the roster. He doesn't know AJ Styles. He doesn't know Samoa Joe. He probably thinks Samoa Joe's some fat dude who puts on trunks. He doesn't know these people. So you bring in this big power guy to come and influence your company. And in fact, it's all about him and not about TNA brand. That's what I'm saying. This is a bad move overall. Anyone should have seen this writing on the wall. But the fact that they did it because they were desperate. They were so desperate. Dixie was desperate.
Well, I think your original point with Rich Eisen is right.
He's bigger.
But I know, but so is Hulk Hogan. A 10,000 subscriber guy is not Hulk Hogan.
But hold on though. Okay, a 20,000. But my point is, Bobby, is like matter what.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't and let's make you some important power.
Just thinking of scale. Just thinking about scale.
If you're telling me, bringing someone like Hulk Hogan, we discussed before power. We're like, creative control. Who would you give one if there was one star? Because we said creative control is so bad for professional wrestling. Russo, creative control, bro. If there was one wrestler you'd bring in to give creative control to, there's guys that you would do that. Like if you had a wrestling company, you could bring that one guy in and he said, I want creative control. There are guys you do that. Roman Reigns would be one. But for me, yes, I understand her logic and her thinking about this. But also it did its job originally. It brought eyes to the product, more eyes than they're needed. Kurt Angle made it legitimate, and it started doing very successful. Getting Hogan involved, and then you see Bischoff put Hogan, and what it brought with it, it made eyes on the channel. There were people who had lost interest, people who were still mainly focused on the WWF, WWE, who turned to TNA. It did its job originally. It put eyes on it. Oh crap! But then it's the decisions that came in after. Again, it says it. I wrote here, teenage, its growth, it grew so fast, but then there was a lot of internal dysfunction between Jeff Jarrett and Dixie, but also then Hogan, and what Hogan's ideas and what and Eric Bischoff's. Okay, hey, we're gonna change the ring. We're gonna make this a traditional 4-sided ring. Tradition takes over. Oh, but that's what makes TNA, which is true. That's a brain fart on their part. The same thing as going head to head with. I love that point by D'Lo Brown. It was awesome hearing from D'Lo at some point during the show at parts. But when he brought up, he said, if you turn into WWE and you watch their product on Raw and he's showing clips of Batista and everything, the pyro, and he goes, they spent more money on pyro than we did on a budget. We didn't have that budget, which is true. They could have gone on another night and been like, hey, that's the program to watch. You take over Wednesday nights. Monday belongs to WWE. Wednesdays belong to you. But no, they wanted to go head to head. Eric Bischoff said, I wanted to pull an old bag of tricks. We beat them in 83 weeks with WCW. I want to do the same thing. Problem is, back then, WCW and WWE looked similar. If you watch in regards of budget, WCW had way more budget than TNA back then. If you watch TNA at that moment in time in WWE, it's two different things. You watch backyard wrestling and pro wrestling. Not that I'm not comparing TNA to backyard wrestling in regards to production style. So that was the issues with that. Go ahead.
Since we are all over the place at this time, which is good. And so that's who we are. It's our brand, right? We know our brand.
Yeah.
The Monday Night War or whatever that was, the battle, the little poof, the little anthill. Young Josh Kimmel was hyped. And I will say, you're right. They weren't ready. Obviously, they failed. But that was a great night of pro wrestling. I remember flipping back and forth going, this is like the old days. And if you look at the card and what WWE did counter program that, because they knew, what a moment we got from WWE. Like that created one of the best moments in WWE history. Not one of the best, but one of the most influential ones. One of the ones that makes sense. Do you remember what happened on Raw that night when TNA went live? Do you remember what happened?
No.
You don't?
No.
Oh, I'm really shocked. Does anyone know in the chat? Then what WWE did counter program TNA's first Monday Night Raw or Monday Night TNA?
TNA episode,
they had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in the middle of the ring, and Bret forgave Shawn for the first time. That was that. They went so hard to bury TNA that they booked that for the main event to counter going Hogan promising a revolution in TNA. Like WWE cared. You said it. Vince was watching. They cared. They care now. That's why they're doing these things to AEW. Counter programming AEW, buying Busted Open Radio, which I'm hearing from a lot of people. Canceled. This show sucks. Bad idea. Sure. But I will say this. WWE cared. And if they had the money in the production, what would have happened? Because what I remember from that night was a big night. You had Eric Bischoff, you had Hogan, you had Jeff Hardy, you had Kurt Angle, you had legitimate stars. And WWE said, you know what? Well, we got Shawn and Bret, and we're going to outdo you. And they did. But man, could you imagine if they were successful? That would have been so much fun, Bobby. That would have kicked off so much more wrestling.
But again, you see, like you say there, do you remember what happened? I do remember. Now that you say that, I recall that, but I didn't watch that. I wasn't watching WWE that night. I watched TNA that night. That was one of the first times I said, I'm going to make sure I watch TNA tonight, because it was the Monday night Hogan and Flair and Sting angle. What were the big plans? Who were the big returns and everything else? And so that was the first time. So how did I know? Oh, I found out after, watched it after. That's how I knew about it. And again, Bret Hart was just standing in the ring. Oh, call out Shawn Michaels, oh, whoa, my God, big epic thing here. And again, Jeff says he repeatedly warned leadership that he changes. Again, he says that. But did you really? Because you saw what this did. You saw it bring in. Yeah, you did rebrand. And I like Maria brings it up. I understand some people that like it. Again, it did make TNA different. Did the 6-sided ring. It did make TNA feel like, oh, again, it was cool for that brand. I understand. Probably not the same now. And she says it's garbage. Other people felt that. Obviously, the traditional people felt that way. Hogan felt that way. He's like, I'm making this 4-sided. What are we doing? They didn't know TNA audience. Well, again, it was supposed to not supposed to you want to make sure you stick with that audience. That's your brand, but also you want to build onto that audience. You can't just stay within the studio. You start working to arenas, and that's what Dixie did, and that's what Dixie wanted, and that's what Hogan wanted, and that's what they were trying to do. So, anyway, episode 3, Hogan, obviously the money, now they're starting, it's close to financial death spiral. I think, was it when Hogan and Jarrett, let me see here, make sure I have it here. Hogan and Jarrett both left in 2013. He officially leaves TNA Wrestling. Hogan leaves TNA Wrestling in October 2013. Dixie became the majority owner after she purchased her dad's shares from Panda Energy. So she takes over, and Jeff Jarrett finally leaves, and that's when Hulk Hogan left. Hogan was done himself because what was going on with TNA. And they talk about the Jeff Jarrett situation. The Jeff Hardy situation. They brought that up again. These little things that's my issue too with this. Like those are key moments in TNA that you want to hear. Those are the things like, okay, that moment in time, like that decision that was made. And Eric Bischoff was brought in by Dixie Carter. This is one of those things. Jeff Jarrett says he was at home or whatever. He called in or he was there or whatever, some shit. And he called and he was trying to figure out what was going on. And he knew. Those are the things I could hear. But again, this episode, talk about this, our show today. It's all over the place because we're again, that's what this show was.
All over the place.
This what this was. It was so all over the place. First, we were talking about Jeff and and a lot of the comments, minus the one dude who showed up, cried a river and dipped, seemed to be kind of on the same page. With what we're discussing here, and I appreciate the comments, and DSG's on the money, Maria's on the money with her points. I get it.
Jeff Hardy, while you look that up, that whole segment.
Go ahead. I want to make sure.
I love this for wrestling lore. Like I hate that it happened, but I love to hear the stories about it, and it's always been consistent. So the stories never change because I've always been interested in it, and the whole like D'Lo, Bischoff going, hey, let's see if we can go walk it off. What do you think he's been doing in the back? Walking around. Now, I guess you guys could get the argument of, the crowd will pop and he'll wake up and know where he's at. What a bad decision. And that just tells me how much you care about your talent. Sting, you put Sting in a ring with this fool, this buffoon who's all high on whatever he's high on. Your top star, one of your biggest stars in TNA history, you're going to make him wrestle this druggie who's obviously doesn't know where he's at. What a bad decision. And if those decisions were made, what other decisions were made behind the scenes? Like what else was going on back there? That's what I want to know.
That's again, that's what I'm talking about. First off, shout out to Jeff Hardy for getting his life together, all that.
No. That's another thing. If you want to puff Jeff Jarrett, which you did, it depends on when this was made. Because if he was interviewed before AEW, okay. But the homeboy did the same thing in AEW like a couple of years ago. So let's not act like this moment right here in time saved his life. No, it didn't. He's had many more. He was in jail very recently. And I'm not making fun of him and his demons. What I'm saying is like,
I know what you're saying.
When was this interview? And why'd you lie to us? Because you didn't change your life at that moment. But
no.
That being said, horrible moment for everybody involved. And that moment right there should have shown everyone who paid good money. Good money, dude. Imagine buying that pay-per-view and going, I can't wait for the main event. Jeff Hardy and Sting, finally. And you get that main event. That's all I have to say about that. Disaster.
No, it's a good point. And again, these are decisions that I think I wanted to hear from. I want to know about those decisions. Those are key moments in TNA, especially closer to the downfall that kind of led to that down. And you're right. Again, you're like, okay, I'm going to put Jeff Hardy is, when Matt Hardy says, when I found out Jeff was in the main event, I was happy for him. This is Sting, somebody we grew up watching. Like, you're going to wrestle Sting, but your demons were so bad and that you did this. And I remember that night. I remember that moment. Sting was so disappointed. And, and Eric Bischoff says, that, and D'Lo Brown says, he says, there was a lot of ways we could have gone and we chose the wrong one. We chose the wrong decision. and you let
I have
Jeff
to defend myself real quick because these people are tearing me apart, Bobby.
Oh, you said
I have
something.
to. Yeah, listen, I understand. No, Fernando, I promise you, and I don't hate Jeff, but I was talking more about the. I'm stuttering because I'm trying to find words. The whole puff piece of it. We already talked about Jeff. We saw one side of it. That's all I'm saying is they made it seem like Jeff Hardy was a complete saint after that moment, way back then. So unless that was recorded back then, don't say like, "Hey, you're right. Relapsing is a big part of recovery." Then Jeff say, "Hey, that was a big part of my life. I was a rock bottom. Unfortunately, it's happened to me many times since, and I'm growing every single day." Because that's the truth. Don't say I changed my life at that moment because that's not true. Unless this was filmed before everything else that happened. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry if I offended anybody. That's all. I had to get that out there because the way this was filmed is what I'm criticizing, not Jeff's decisions. The way it was filmed, the way it was produced, and the puffiness of it.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry.
So they talk about that. They bring up that detail. Jeff leaves TNA Wrestling. Hogan leaves TNA Wrestling. Bischoff not too long after that. Russo, I think, sticks around on and off. I think, he sticks around on and off. They show, Jeff Jarrett, he leaves TNA. He goes back home. I think this is when I'm trying to think now. When he makes Global Force Wrestling. I think that's what it was before. Makes Global Force Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he did it before. He did it again. He brings in Global Force Wrestling and does that. And he says, we had a couple shows and, I was running baseball stadiums. It shows empty baseball stadiums and, just two guys wrestling in an empty stadium and all that whatnot. And then it says how, he was going to Triple Mania. And this is how his demons were taken. He said he was drinking beer and saw his beer gut. He's like, I'm not having this. So he went straight to vodka.
Joke of the whole series. The best pop of the whole series.
Yeah. And so goes to Mexico for Triple Mania, and it shows behind the scenes. I think that's Vampiro, if I remember. I think that's Vampiro, who was trying to tell, hey, Jeff, we need to go. You got to go out there. And Jeff was in no position to go out there. Same thing with the Jeff Hardy situation. Shouldn't have gone out there. Mm-hmm. They do it, and it shows him behind the scenes, and he's going off on everybody. And again, it's like, I'm pretty sure this did not just show up. I'm pretty sure this was going on somewhere in TNA where maybe this added to the issues, but we're only bringing it up after the fact, And some of the things he was saying, with TNA going through the death spiral and some of the decisions they were making, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, you started TNA, but TNA grew because of a lot of the decisions that were made that put eyes on that product. Eventually though, they were cut holes into the pool and trying to patch it all up, that eventually it just deflated, and that's what killed TNA. It wasn't just Dixie Carter. It was Jeff Jarrett too. It was a lot of all of that. So it's not like revisionist history that you can kind of read between them. Oh, do your homework and do everything else they like to do in the comments earlier. It's like, let's be real, Mr. Reporter, because obviously you didn't do your fucking research, because the fact of the matter is it's pretty obvious without even doing research. And we did. I did research. I know damn well Josh did research, but we go to Jeff's story, and episode 3, the second half or the third half of that episode is mainly Jeff Jarrett in AEW, Jeff Jarrett talking with the guys in AEW, and Tony Khan is there, and this is all happy-go-feely, and he got his life together. He wanted to be the front row and write the notes, and and it shows him working with the guys, which is cool to know. I mean, I'm glad he got his life together. I'm glad he didn't go down that rabbit hole. I'm glad he's found a place where he's happy. And I agree. I hope, even though it's not the same TNA, I hope he looks at TNA and goes, I started that. That would not be a company, that wouldn't have been real if it wasn't for me thinking about that in my kitchen or wherever I did, and I thought that up with my dad. Now he can go back and go, man, I should have started it this way. I should have done this way. I should never, maybe if I would have just held up and said, let me go and talk to multiple investors, not just one, and agree to the first run, But I'm glad where Jeff Jarrett's story is now. And again, we could talk about it all day. I know people had some comments about Karen and all that. Ain't going there. I know Jeff recently came out in defense of Karen. on Conrad's show or whatever show that was. I won't go there with Karen. But I saw some comments in there. I won't go there. But I think we could have heard a little bit from her and then kind of just moved on again because I want to know about TNA. I would love, her version with Kurt Angle and everything, Jeff Jarrett, and then moved on. But I'm happy where Jeff left off. Again, though, I was disappointed with this docu-series because it had nothing to do with the battle for TNA. I don't know how many minutes that whole story was, the battle for TNA, but there wasn't really a battle. There's a bunch of gossip, what you thought was happening. Oh, well, the evil witch, we never heard from her, quote unquote. Well, because she refused, and I know she refused. Maybe because she kind of saw the right one, where she was like, you know what, I just want to move on from that. I don't want to talk about it. But I'm sure, like you said, there are plenty of people who would have came on to detract what was being said. So, again, I just think it's just disappointing. The battle for TNA, you didn't hear from Sting, you didn't hear from AJ, you didn't hear from Samoa Joe or Christopher Daniels. You didn't hear from none of these guys. The beginning again, to hear from or to hear the story of how Jeff got NWA involved. Why he brought in Vince Russo. Not that he brought in Vince Russo. I understand you brought in Vince Russo. And again, we joke and bro, and everybody. I was talking to my brother yesterday, Nick, and everybody kind of has sort of the same opinion of Vince Russo. But I said, you got to give the guy credit. He's been around so long. No. But be around so long. Look, I know what you're going to say. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And for a guy who says he hates wrestling so damn much, and bro, why the guy we go, bro, and he says all that, he said it during that show. He's always around. He's always stuck around. He's on a podcast now with Coach and shitting on wrestling and whatever. But okay, Jeff, you brought in Vince Russo. We know what he did in the Attitude Era with WWE. As much credit he wants to give Vince or whatever. We know why did you bring him in? Again, was it because he believed in you as a world champion? He wanted to make you a main event guy. Is that why? Or are you guys just buddies? Or did you want to stir the shit right away? Like you got so high on episode 1, you're like, let's go crazy for episode 2. We never got that. Again, those are the type of stories I wanted to hear for this. Like the build up, you remember in episode 1, you told me, you're like, Bobby, I think it was a little too much Jeff, not enough TNA. And I told, how I felt was, okay, if episode 1's about how Jeff started, it makes sense. He's the founder. I want to know how he got started in the business, what got him interested in the business, and then how he learned from his dad, who was a promoter, to say, maybe I could build TNA. Maybe I could do this. We never got that, though, in the end. It was a whole bunch of sob story, make Jeff look great, stroke his ego. My goodness, Jeff, I never wanted to lose TNA. Of course you never wanted to lose TNA. But the decisions were whatever. And this guy here, Russo, this is one of the things that drove me crazy at the end. Bro, if Jeff had never lost control of TNA, bro, only God knows where they'd be. Gone. It would have been shut down. He had no money. The investor was gone, Vince. You could play at both sides. You could stroke, spit, whatever, all you freaking want. Jeff Jarrett, the fact of the matter is, if he never lost control of TNA, they would have been gone. The only reason why they survived and lived as long as they won because he found an investor, which was Panda Energy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pretend all you want, and now that Dixie's gone, you don't work for Dixie anymore, you're still friends with Jeff Jarrett, you're involved in this thing, you're going to start stroking and spitting and everything else. His ego. The fact is, the fact. You played both sides too. It's pretty damn obvious you did. Dixie kept you around for a long time. But anyway. I'm glad that we're done with this.
I'm glad too.
Because I'm so damn. That's how I'm so disappointed because I was so excited to watch this, and it be this.
Yeah,
this was what you made up. This is what you thought of. Dark Side of the Ring, all the great stuff that you've put on. You're like the battle for TNA. My goodness, that's when you call. And when you realize, I think you said this. And I'll let you get your point. But when you realized you couldn't put this together, that's probably when you should have changed directions. when you probably should have said, you know what, let's make this the Jeff Jarrett story. You know, again, the tragedy of Owen Hart, the unfortunate passing of his wife, and you know how he had to pick himself back up for his kids, and he started TNA and then he lost TNA, and then you know people misjudged his relationship with Karen, and that messed him up, and you know and how he rebuilt his life after TNA and tried to be global and made the biggest downfall was Triple Mania, and now look where he is. Look where he's at now. Look at the prime. He's still doing it. He's still in great shape. He does really good. He works back at scenes in AEW. He's working with that. Like the Jeff Jarrett story, that would have been a different vibe, because then you and I could have been talking about that and been like, you know what, great. But you labeled this the battle for TNA. It had nothing to do with that. This was a chapter and a very dumb all over episodes of Dark Side of the Ring. You know, yeah. I know, but anyway.
So I'm glad it's over too. This was the Bobby show, and I'm just here for the ride. But honestly, I'm glad because this is the best content Bobby's been putting out in a long time. No, I'm just kidding. No, Bobby, you were on fire tonight. I'm joking. No, you were on fire tonight because you know what? I can feel the passion. If you're new to this channel, No Holds Barred Wrestling channel, then please subscribe and like it, because this is the passion you get. I knew Bobby was going to feel some kind of way. I already watched all 3 episodes. I had him in a bag. I knew Bobby was not going to be happy. So I knew once we did this show, there'd be a lot of words that were said, and we said them all. So we're going to wrap it up. And we're not done, though, because it's Tuesday. You know what that means, Bobby? We're 2 days away from Real Talk Wrestling, 6:30. El Ginger Americano, myself, Miami Clutch PE is questionable because he is on vacation. But we're doing the full SummerSlam preview. DSG already said it. We're throwing it back to Russo. We're giving him his flowers. We're having a human money on a pole match. Danhausen versus Dominic Mysterio. The whole SummerSlam card, by the way, is a joke. Cannot wait for this to pass over. Not excited, but we will be covering it and having our title defense, which if you haven't watched, we actually have a pay-per-view title, Bobby. So anyone can come for the title, just you have to be on the show. Friday, AEW Dynamite Rundown. We'll talk more about AEW Redemption, that terrible pay-per-view, everything that happened with Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay. The plastic bag has made its return. And hey, bruv, if you're going to try to rip a bag and look intimidating, do it the first time. Don't take, like me trying to rip a Publix plastic bag. God, it looked so bad. And then, of course, Saturday, we'll be back. Maybe at a special start time. We got to talk about that because it's SummerSlam weekend. And we know people are going to choose SummerSlam over us. Don't be wrong. I would do the same thing. So we might have to decide when we're going to do our show because we have a SummerSlam weekend, Bobby. Where can we find you, sir?
Man, let's say Tuesday. Today, after this, I'm going to celebrate my birthday. Enjoy it there. 38 years old. Blessed. I love the comments today. Bobby was hot today, taking Nashville story personally. The actor from Scream winning the WCW was Vince Russo's fault. Yes. Judy Bagwell. Yes. All Vince Russo. We know. We're not stupid. That's why, again, I would have loved to hear Jeff Jarrett talk about why he thought it was a good idea to bring in Jarrett. All the dysfunction with Jim Cornette and his dad, Jerry Jarrett. But we never got that. But that's okay. It's over now. I'm done talking about this bull crap. But yes, tomorrow, tomorrow's Wednesday, may do East 10th Street Boys, depending. Alex is going to be live on Deck Baseball podcast talking about the trade deadline. So I'll follow up with him about tomorrow night. But Thursday, I will be live with Finn Sammy for Finn's Talk Today, talking Dolphins training camp, the start of that. We got a lot of news and stories coming out of there. Coach Hafley talking today and all that, whatnot. And then, of course, Saturday, special start time, more than likely. I didn't have you pay for it. Yes, just all the gray hairs and everything else. But no, 38. But No Holds Barred, WrestleMania Rewind. We got WrestleMania 15 coming up. So I'm excited to get back to that. But again, we'll continue watching Dark Side of the Ring, and we'll talk more stuff on Dark Side. But this one was a total, it was like a whole tease. It was like, hey, a lot of, what's that called, Josh? Blue balls. A lot of blue ball feeling here.
Yeah, a lot of edging.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, Maria, thank you. Everyone, thank you. Oh, Redemption, yes. And Josh, I'm sure, talking about all of that. But anyway, Willow won, I think. Willow won, and
yeah, I called that.
Yeah,
Maya World won, called that too.
Yeah, and then Omega turned on Ospreay.
No, we'll talk about AEW. We'll talk about.
Okay, my bad. All right, I'm gonna leave it alone. That's Josh Kimmel. I'm Bobby Melendez. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on Thursday for Josh, Saturday for
That's how you do it, bruv. That's how you do it, bruv.
Petty